तो ये इकोनॉमिक वीकर सेक्शन को जो रिजर्वेशन दिया 10% का, वो मेरी तरफ से बहुत ही अच्छा है, जिससे उन पर्सनस को बहुत ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ मिलेगी मार्केट के अंदर एंड दे विल ग्रो।
10% रिजर्वेशन जो गवर्नमेंट ने की है वो गरीब लोगों के लिए ठीक है और जनरल कैटेगरी के लिए अपॉर्चुनिटी इससे कम होती नजर आ रही है।
मुझे ज़्यादा आर्थिक जो आरक्षण के बारे में मुझे कोई ज़्यादा नॉलेज नहीं है, मगर आने वाले समय में अच्छा ही होगा।
Good evening and welcome to today's discussion program on JSJC TV. I'm Samyukta Thakur and I'll be the moderator and producer for today's discussion. Reservations in jobs are back in the news this month as Haryana government notifies a 75% reservation for local people in private jobs, a move that has caused ripples in corporates and business houses working in the state. But arguably, a reservation with bigger consequences is the one providing 10% reservation in government jobs and education institution to the economically weaker sections. The 103rd Constitutional Amendment, passed in 2019, expands the ambit of reservations in India significantly and has polarized opinions sharply across the social spectrum. But do reservation really work? And is the 10% reservation a real game changer? To discuss this today, we have with us on the show our three panelists. We have, let's welcome Professor Sandeep Suresh, Assistant Professor and Assistant Dean at Jindal Global Law School. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Samyukta, for inviting me.
Next, we have Shubodh Asthana, who is a fourth-year law student studying at the HNLU Raipur. Thanks for being a part of this discussion, Shubodh.
Thank you so much, Samyukta. It's a pleasure to be here.
Last but not the least, we have Ashish Sharma, who is a fourth-year law student at RGNLU Patiala. Glad to see you, Ashish. Thanks for being a part of this discussion.
Thank you, Samyukta.
So let's begin with Professor Sandeep. Professor, what are your views on the 10% reservation provided on the economic basis?
Yes, Samyukta. So being a lawyer, I would try to present the legal aspect of this entire reservation that has been brought in by way of an amendment to the Constitution. I believe at a policy level discussion, it is a question, but I will present the fact that this amendment, which has introduced a 10% reservation for economically weaker sections, is a constitutional move. Why is it constitutionally legal? The main argument that people have raised in challenge to this amendment has been the fact that this is not how reservation has to be done per the Constitution. How is it to be done? It is to be done based on social and educational backwardness, which is true, which is the way we have been used to since 1950 onwards, right? Which is why we have social and educational factors coming in to determine which groups deserve reservation. But here is a new change, which is purely on the reservation purely on the basis of economic weakness, right? So that people are saying that it is against the basic structure of the Constitution, right? Now let us understand that, right? A basic structure of a constitution is a concept of judicial review, which is about certain large features of the Constitution and not about any specific element of the Constitution. Let's say equality, for that matter, is a feature of the Constitution which no government or no parliament can sort of take away by doing certain bulldozing amendments to the Constitution. However, is equality being taken away here? No, right? The factors to decide equality is something that the parliament has, by consensus, by voting, by a democratic process, decided to bring in, right? You and me can have different versions of how well this policy might work out, but as far as a legal question is concerned, as far as a constitutional question is concerned, parliament, which is voted by the people, does definitely have the power to introduce a new concept of equality, right? So as long as they are not diluting equality, the concept, but they are introducing a new aspect of equality which is based on economic criteria, there is no basic structure question that can be taken up as a challenge against this constitutional amendment. Second of all, another legal issue that people raise is the fact that in the Indira Sawhney judgment, Indira Sawhney case, which is 1992, the Supreme Court had apparently held that 50% is the ceiling limit for reservations, right? Now, we have to understand that the judgment was in the context of certain executive orders by the government of the day, right? However, here we are talking about an amendment to the constitution, not an order of the government of the day, right? Not an order of a set of people who are, either going to go on and off based on electoral politics. But here we are talking about a parliamentary power which has been exercised to bring up an amendment to the constitution under Article 368, right? So therefore, of course, that point of ruling in the Indira Sawhney judgment is not applicable here. When we are dealing with a constitutional amendment, the only question to be looked at is whether it violates the basic structure of the constitution. Their policy questions like, okay, this level of economic poverty or economic weakness cannot be a determinant of equality or determinant of who deserves reservation, is not supposed to be on the table. Yes, Samyukta, those are my two
both-
preliminary.
Yes, sir. So, Shubodh, what are your views on this? I've read articles written by you, and you've mentioned many things like the 50% limit that the Indira Sawhney case had on the reservation. So, what are your views on this?
First of all, a warm greetings to all my co-panelists, and thank you, Samyukta, for having me here. And seeing the composition of the panel, I believe that I am the least experienced panelist among all the present here, and I have a great regard for Dr. Suresh. Having said that, in my opinion, as you rightly pointed out in the articles that I have written and authored, in my opinion, the reservation to EWS category directly impinges upon the constitutional mandate. Now, why is so? Is because of the fact we have to look at the Constituent Assembly debates for that matter. Now, before coming to that Constituent Assembly debates, I will be quoting the relevant excerpts as well. We have to understand that reservation to EWS is not an obligatory provision that is similar to the reservation that is provided to other communities. Now, the question here is, do the EWS upper caste people pass the level of backwardness here? Every amendment that is made by the parliament has to succumb to a constitutionality test whether that amendment is reasonable to the object, to the nexus that it sought to achieve. However, in the present matter, if we see that without conducting any research by the government came out with a notification of directly amending the constitution. Now, we have to understand here is that economic backwardness is quite a fluid entity. It can change at any moment. Rich people can become poor, and vice versa can also happen. Moreover, when we look, but when we talk about the reservation that is given to the to the socially marginalized community, it is because of the fact that they have faced sorts of oppression from the society for a large amount of time. It is my assertion here that income and wealth of the citizen cannot be the only basis on which the seats can be reserved. Now, if we place reliance on the reply to the RTI given by Minister of State in one of the parliamentary sessions, and if I'm not wrong, it was Dr. Jitendra Singh. He said that as of 1st January 2016, the representation of SC, ST, and OBC in the central public institution amounts to nearly 52%. Amounts to nearly, sorry, I'm not, sorry, it amounts to nearly 48%, which means that 52% of the seats have been acquired by the EWS category candidates. Therefore, from that, we can derive that EWS category candidates have a good representation in the public institutions. Furthermore, it is secondly coming on to the next point. The reservation is a constitutional scheme to ensure the participation of the backward classes. However, coming on the Constitutional Assembly debates as to why I am saying that the particular provision impinges upon the constitutional mandate of Article 15 and 16 is because it takes away that soul of those articles. Why? Because when we see at the Constitutional Assembly debates, we we come to the fact that that in those debates, the members of the Constituent Assembly said that economic reservation is against the spirit of our Constitution. The provision of reservation, the provision, the way why we have the provision of reservation in our constitution was to ensure that the discrimination that was given, that the socially oppressed communities faced should not be faced by the people who are should not be faced by those people, and in order to compensate those people we have the provision of reservation. But
Shubodh,
why? But
Shubodh, now talking like what we are talking about the whole constitution and the spirit of reservation was because of the caste. So Ashish, do you think the same? I mean, what are your views on the economic reservation? Like what Shubodh said, do you agree with him?
No, first of all, thank you, Samyukta. But I don't agree with the Subodh view. I dissent with the Subodh opinion. My stand is that the reference has been given by Dr. Suresh sir and Subodh to Indra Sani judgment. The Indra Sani judgment was basically given 30 years ago. At that time, the social structure was different, and then the circumstances were also different. Actually, the reservation was basically introduced to remove the social backwardness and the oppression which the people were facing to the division which has been created by our forefathers, that is Brahman, Kshatriyas, Shudras. So, with the passage of time, many people have benefited from the caste based reservation which has been duly given. And I want to state herein that the reservation which is given in the educational institution, in the government job through the caste based system, have dichotomized the people into the higher caste and the upper caste. So if a single no religion, no caste based reservation is being introduced, that is economic based reservation, it would be beneficial, and it would help in removing the hurdle which the main aim of the which is the main aim of introducing the reservation at the first place, that is removing that the division of the people. The Brahmins, the Shudras were treated not well by the upper caste people. So I think, in my opinion, the economic the economic criteria is the best criteria, because the more important thing that the if the economic backwardness of the people is removed, then all the other operation can be dealt with. For example, if we refer to the present reservation based system, the present based system is that a person by birth get a right to be treated differently. For example, people from developed people of developed monetary background. For example, if a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe person become a IS, I don't think so that his children or his children needed a reservation,
Yes,
because they do have the adequate facilities. The backwardness will be removed.
I get your
So
point of the
yeah.
backwardness, but Professor Sandeep, what do you think? Because as what Shubodh said, that there are so many people that come under that category. So, what do you think about the policy, the criteria to put people and get that quota?
Um, 2 points, Samyukta, in response to what Subodh had mentioned. One, a legal aspect, another something that is happening in our country. First is Subodh mentioned about Constituent Assembly debates. I would like to respectfully put it out there that the Constituent Assembly debates have to be looked at from the perspective of what was the situation at that point of time, right? Now, there is no system or there is no rule in constitutional law or constitutional conventions that bind the parliament to all and everything that the Constituent Assembly said, especially when they are not diluting the constitutional basic structure, but they are adding a new element which does not touch any other existing features, right? It would have been a different scenario if we had, removed entire, social and educational backwardness based reservation in 15.4 and 16.4, and then brought in this economic reservation. Then that would have been a foul of the constitution. But here we are still retaining the socio-educational backwardness based reservation, right? And on top of that, we are adding, and therefore there is no dilution of the basic structure, and no parliament can be held accountable to the strongholds of the Constituent Assembly debates. For example, tomorrow, if the parliament believes that we need to shift to a presidential form of democracy, there is no basic structure that prevents them from doing it, because basic structure doctrine only looks at that, India, the basic structure aspect is democracy. What kind of democracy? The future parliament and the will of the people can decide. Point number one. Point number two is the fact that, see, already we have, keep aside reservation, don't we have so many other social benefits or other forms of state benefits that are given to people based on economic criterion? For example, take a look at the public distribution system that we have, right? Take a look at the ration system that we have. Isn't it decided on the basis of pure economic criterion, where we have below poverty line, above poverty line, and that's on the basis which we already receive state benefits? So today, to come and then say that economic criteria will run afoul of the constitution suddenly for reservation is a shock, and it's not a constitutionally acceptable argument.
Yes,
That's
I think that's all the time we have for today. I think that sums up everything about economic reservations, the pro and cons of it. Thank you all for such an insightful discussion. Thank you, everyone, and keep tuned in JSJC TV for such discussion. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Samyukta, for handling
you
this
so much.
debate.
Samantha.
Thank you.